Chapter 48. Alice was flying towards the house, brimming with excitement. "Finally," I muttered. I turned my head, watching as Alice and Esme leapt from the far riverbank. Emmett, instead, obnoxiously plowing straight through the river, dousing the back windows with water. Esme shot him a look over her shoulder.
"He's going to be washing those windows himself."
Jasper followed, his thoughts slightly embarrassed. "I'm fine, okay?" They came through the door quickly, and we stood up to meet them, forming a loose group around Bella. She glanced around cautiously, seeming to notice all the eyes on her. Emmett was looking back and forth between Bella and me. "Someone's gonna get lucky tonight," he thought gleefully.
"Oh, I so hope she loves it."
Esme was smiling widely. She caught my eye.
"We thought it would be nice for the two of you just to enjoy it yourselves tonight, alone. After everything you've been through, you need a chance to just concentrate on each other."
Her eyes flickered to Alice, and she shook her head imperceptibly, her expression slightly exasperated.
"Alice insists on being there when Bella first sees the cottage, but she has promised to come right back. The rest of us will stay here."
She looked back, meeting my eyes, and I smiled my gratitude at her.
"Look at her,"
Rose thought, taking in Bella's blank face.
"She has absolutely no idea what's going on. She really believes they just went hunting."
Alice danced up to Bella, her grin wide.
12 o'clock on the dot, as predicted. By me."
She held out her hand, presenting Bella with a key to the cottage, decorated with an enormous over-the-top pink bow. Bella opened her hand, and Alice dropped the key into it.
"Happy birthday!"
Alice squealed with delight. Bella immediately rolled her eyes.
"No one starts counting on the actual day of birth," she said. "Your first birthday is at the year mark, Alice." "Oh, not this time. We're not celebrating your vampire birthday, yet. It's September 13th, Bella."
Bella's slightly annoyed look quickly melted into one of horror.
"Happy 19th birthday!"
Bella looked at her desperately.
"No, no way,"
she cried, pushing the key back into Alice's hand. I smiled. Some things never change. Bella glanced at me, and her eyes narrowed.
"No, this doesn't count. I stopped aging 3 days ago. I'm 18 forever."
Alice shrugged.
"Whatever. We're celebrating anyway, so suck it up."
Bella sighed, her expression turning somewhat resigned, making Alice smile even wider.
"There we go. Are you ready to open your present?"
she asked excitedly. "Presents," I said, pulling out the key Esme had given me earlier. Bella looked at it, and I saw comprehension in her eyes that this was for her after-car. She smiled weakly.
"Back off, Edward. This is my show." "Mine first,"
Alice insisted. She quickly checked the future. "Mine is closer," I said in her mind, grinning. She stuck her tongue out at me. "Mine is closer." I parroted my own words.
"Jerk,"
Alice fumed.
"But look how she's dressed,"
she wailed.
"It's been killing me all day. That's clearly the priority."
"I think she'll be getting undressed, not dressed," Emmett thought with a chuckle.
"I know. I'll play you for it. Rock, paper, scissors."
Alice smiled sweetly.
"See? I can be reasonable, brother."
"Yeah, good luck with that man," Jasper laughed. "Why don't you just tell me who wins?" I muttered. Alice looked to the side, seeing me choose rock. She looked back with a grin.
Gee, I think I'll choose paper. I do,
she sang.
Excellent.
It's probably better that I wait for morning anyway. I was just needling Alice as it was. I was far more excited to get Bella out to the cottage. Plus, I was kidding myself to think that Bella would be excited about the Ferrari. She was still mourning that damn red truck. I think it might be more fun if Jacob was awake for the big reveal. Don't you agree? So that someone there might be able to express the right level of enthusiasm.
Yay!
Alice crowed.
Bella, give Renesmee to Rosalie.
Where does she usually sleep? Asked Bella.
In Rose's arms,
answered Alice.
Or Jacob's, or Esme's. You get the picture. She's never been set down in her entire life. She's going to be the most spoiled half-vampire in existence.
I laughed. With Esme leading the helm in this family, there was never any doubt my daughter would be spoiled. Rosalie moved forward quickly, her arms aching to hold Nessie again.
Spoiled just like her father,
she thought, grinning at me.
She is also the most unspoiled half-vampire in existence,
she said, turning to Bella and taking Nessie in her arms.
The beauty of being one of a kind.
Alice grabbed Bella's hand, pressing the key back into it, and then taking her arm and pulling her towards the back of the house.
Get a move on, Edward,
she thought.
Let's go, let's go. Is it outside?
Asked Bella, her face confused.
Sort of,
answered Alice.
Don't give her any hints. Enjoy your gift,
said Rosalie.
It's from all of us, Esme especially.
Bella turned and frowned.
Aren't you coming too? We'll give you a chance to enjoy it alone,
said Rose.
I'm not so much into voyeurism. You can tell us about it later.
That's right. I expect details. Emmett laughed loudly. Bella glanced at him, slightly chagrined, as if she had an idea what he was thinking. Then she smiled widely, as something seemed to occur to her. I wondered at the smile. She couldn't possibly have guessed the gift, but was happy to see it. Alice pulled her out the door, and I followed.
There's the enthusiasm I'm looking for,
Alice said, catching Bella's pleased expression. She let go of her arm and sprinted down towards the river, Bella jogging after her. I turned and raised my arm to my family, watching from the window. Renesmee's sleeping form was visible in Rose's arms.
Don't worry, Edward,
Rose thought.
I'll take good care of her.
Congratulations, son, Carlyle thought. Esme waved, standing next to him. She reached out and put an arm around Jasper. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Emmett grinned. Not that there's much.
Come on, Bella,
Alice called from the other side of the river. I turned and ran down the lawn, taking my jump across the river just as Bella leapt. I ran behind her, feeling no need to lead. I knew she would be able to follow Alice's quiet footsteps. The path to the cottage was still well worn with the scent of my family, even though the visits had decreased dramatically since our arrival home. I was reminded of running this same path with Esme in late June, hearing the anxiety and excitement in her mind of her plans.
I know I'm being selfish,
she had said,
but I can't bear to have you far from us.
She had always hated when Rosalie and Emmett had lived too far away.
This will be perfect.
Esme had always been intrigued by the small crumbling structure that lay on our lands. In fact, all of the family had checked it out at one time or another, Emmett had been threatening for the last couple of years to fix it up and fill it with a huge custom-made pool table. He said that men needed a place to get away from the women, a sentiment that usually gained him a lot of glares and a smack from Rose. I was glad now that Carlyle and Esme hadn't agreed to his request. Esme had drawn up the initial plans, and Jasper and Emmett had done most of the carpentry. I hadn't been allowed much of a hand in the renovations, since it was technically a gift, but I had been consulted on most of the major decisions. We had all imagined during the refurbishment that Bella would be living here with me as a human, at least for a little while. Now, although circumstances might force us to leave soon, I hoped we could spend some time enjoying the cottage on our own. Privacy would be at a minimum in the house in New Hampshire, if we did end up there.
Don't let her see it,
Alice thought suddenly in alarm.
It will ruin the surprise.
I slowed slightly, not sure what she wanted me to do, when suddenly she turned and raced back towards us. I realized she planned to grab Bella and cover her eyes, and a vision flashed in her mind of Bella throwing her off. I shook my head quickly at her. Alice thought, slowing as she came up to where Bella had paused.
Don't attack me,
she said to Bella. The vision shifted to Alice hanging off Bella's back. Alice grinned, and then leapt, putting a hand on Bella's shoulder and swinging herself around to cling onto Bella's back, pressing her hands quickly over Bella's eyes.
What are you doing?
Said Bella anxiously, squirming slightly. Regardless of what Alice saw, I thought she still might throw her off. Any other newborn would, and I also thought Alice might just deserve it.
Making sure you can't see.
I could take care of that without the theatrics, I interjected.
Ha ha! You might let her cheat,
said Alice, turning to glare.
Take her hand and lead her forward. Alice,
Bella protested.
Don't bother, Bella. We're doing this my way. You both know this is a losing battle.
I sighed, reaching out and taking Bella's hand, interlocking our fingers. Just a few seconds more, Bella, I said loudly. Then she'll go annoy someone else. I began to pull her gently forward, making careful adjustments as we went, so she didn't run into any trees or branches.
So that's the thanks I get? You might be a little more appreciative,
Alice said, her voice miffed.
This is as much for you as it is for her. Do I need to show you my visions of tonight again? Because I've seen a few more.
I didn't think I could take any more of Alice's visions without grabbing Bella and taking her off into the cottage right now. True, I assented. Thank you again, Alice.
Yeah, okay,
Alice muttered. We came around a curve in the path and entered the clearing, the cottage rising up in front of us. I sighed, amazed and thankful for the beautiful work my family had done. The flowers had been lovingly tended, the honeysuckle curving higher up onto the house than the last time I had been here. The roses had opened as well, specifically chosen by Esme, so that they would hopefully still be blooming when we returned from the island. I could see that Emmett and Jasper had laid the stone path that we had discussed before the wedding, and that Carlyle had installed the front door he had carefully refurbished. I caught Alice's eye, trying to relay my gratitude for such a gift. She smiled.
Because we love you both.
Then we turned our eyes on Bella, who was standing, her expression frozen. Alice's face wrinkled slightly as she tried to discern Bella's reaction.
What do you think?
Bella's mouth moved slightly, looking as if she meant to speak, but she said nothing. I could see that she was shocked, this gift completely unexpected. Esme thought we might like a place of our own for a while, but she didn't want us too far away, I said softly. And she loves any excuse to renovate. This little place has been crumbling away out here for at least 100 years. Bella continued to stare silently at the house.
Oh no,
Alice thought.
it's not what she wanted. It's too small, too old. Don't you like it?
She asked anxiously.
I mean, I'm sure we could fix it up differently if you want. Emmett was all for adding a few thousand square feet, a second story, columns, and a tower. But Esme thought you would like it best the way it was meant to look. I saw a vision of her smiling. Maybe I misinterpreted. If she was wrong, we can get back to work. It won't take long.
Shh, Bella said quickly. Alice shut her mouth, containing a flood of words. The silence stretched as Alice panicked, but I was certain that the light in Bella's eyes was one of wonder and admiration.
You're giving me a house for my birthday?
Bella said, her voice just a whisper. Us, I said. And it's no more than a cottage. I think the word house implies more legroom.
No knocking my house,
Bella said softly.
Yes.
Alice sagged with relief, a smile forming quickly on her face.
You like it?
Bella shook her head, and I smiled.
Love it?
Alice ventured. Bella nodded, and Alice clapped her hands, bouncing upon her toes.
I can't wait to tell Esme. Why didn't she come?
Bella asked.
Oh, you know. They all remember how you are about presents. They didn't want to put you under too much pressure to like it.
Bella looked surprised.
But of course I love it. How could I not? They'll like that,
Alice said, touching Bella's arm.
Well, time for me to make my exit. I was ordered to return and leave you two alone. They're probably sending out a search party now. Anywho, your closet is stocked. Use it wisely. And I guess that's everything. Aren't you coming inside?
Asked Bella, looking confused.
Feel free to help me out here, Edward.
But I rather liked watching her squirm. Alice backed up slowly towards the woods.
Edward knows his way around. I'll stop by later. Call me if you can't match your clothes right.
She glanced at me.
Clothes first, before you get distracted. It's top priority.
She looked at Bella for a moment, taking in the too big white shirt over the tattered dirty dress, and then back at me, her expression doubtful.
Are you sure you don't want me to stay and help? Just for a little while?
I narrowed my eyes, and she shrugged.
Fine, your loss. Jazz wants to hunt,
Alice said to Bella, avoiding her eyes, her voice unconvincing.
Awkward. See you.
She turned and took off into the trees. Real smooth, Alice, I thought. Bella watched her go, frowning.
That was weird,
she said.
Am I really that bad? They didn't have to all stay away. Now I feel guilty. I didn't even thank her right. We should go back. Tell Esme.
Bella, I laughed. Don't be silly. No one thinks you're that unreasonable. Her forehead wrinkled.
Then what?
Alone time is their other gift. Alice was trying to be subtle about it. Trying being the key word. Surprise flickered across her face.
Oh,
she murmured. Her stare seemed to become hotter, more intense. I wasn't sure what she was thinking, but the look in her eyes made me want to clutch her to me, now. Don't be selfish. She hadn't even seen the inside of the house yet, and I wanted to do this properly, if she would let me. I reached out and gently took her hand. "Let me show you what they've done," I said, tugging her gently towards the house. This was surreal. All the planning and work, and we were actually here, as if in a far-off dream. Bella suddenly let out a single, unsteady laugh. I glanced back. "Do I get to hear the joke?"
"It's not very good," she replied. "I was just thinking, today is the first and last day of forever. It's kind of hard to wrap my head around it, even with all that extra room for wrapping."
I laughed, understanding both the exhilaration and frustration of a mind capable of many separate thoughts at once. Like the concept of immortality, this was an aspect that took a while to embrace, most newborns too initially consumed by bloodlust to appreciate, and as the lust waned, there was still a lengthy adjustment period. I had forgotten the overwhelming sensations of the patterns of my thoughts during my early existence, coupled with my forcible senses and strength, and joined by the bewildering concept of eternal life, and specific only to me, the onslaught of the thoughts from other minds. And yet Bella was not only casually acknowledging these massive changes, she was doing it with laughter. Loving her, always, I gestured towards the door. She placed the key in the lock, turning it easily. I could smell the fresh oil in the locking mechanism. My family had thought of everything. "You're such a natural at this, Bella. I forget how very strange this all must be for you. What must be going through her thoughts? I wish I could hear it." Then, afraid suddenly she would refuse if I asked, I swept down and lifted her quickly into my arms, hoping I wouldn't spook her.
"Hey,"
she protested, but didn't push me away. "Thresholds are part of my job description," I said with a smile, still wishing I could peer into her mind. "But I'm curious. Tell me what you're thinking about right now." Cradling her to my chest, I pushed open the door with my shoulder and stepped inside the living room. I watched Bella's eyes roam the room, full of astonishment.
"Everything," she said. "All at the same time, you know? Good things and things to worry about, and things that are new. How I keep using too many superlatives in my head."
She smiled.
"Right now, I'm thinking that Esme is an artist. It's so perfect."
I glanced around, not having seen the inside since it was furnished, noticing the furniture Esme and Carlyle had purchased during endless hours searching antique stores, a selection of Bella's favorite paintings from the house, which Esme and I had decided on together. Rosalie had even donated one of her own, knowing Bella enjoyed it. There were books Carlyle had gathered from his own shelves, Bella's favorites, plus others he thought we would enjoy. In the purple darkness, Emmett's fire flickered softly. It had all once seemed so untouchable, and now we would be living here. My family would be living here. "We're lucky Esme thought to add an extra room," I said. "No one was planning for Renesmee." Bella's eyes narrowed.
"Not you too,"
she moaned. I grimaced. "Sorry, love. I hear it all the time in their thoughts, you know. It's rubbing off on me." Bella sighed, her face a mixture of exasperation and resignation. Hoping to distract her, I took another step into the house. I'm sure you're dying to see the closet, I joked. Or at least I'll tell Alice that you were, to make her feel good. As I walked through the small house with her in my arms, I was utterly distracted by the feel of her, by her scent, her voice, her hair that gently touched my face. I could feel something twinge within me, anticipation, need, but also nervousness. I recalled similar emotions when we had arrived at Isle Esme, the first night of our honeymoon, wrapped up in the fear of hurting her and the expectation of the unknown. I could no longer hurt her, but I still, in some ways, felt vastly inexperienced. Most of our love-making, for me, had been ruled by precision and control. I never allowed myself to forget the marks I had left on her body the first time we had been together, determined to never forget what my hands had done and could do. Even caged by restraints, my body had still proven more than capable of experiencing the intense pleasure she brought me. Still, I worried if I would know how to let go of that control now, to give her the response she needed. You didn't have any trouble when you kissed her earlier, I thought wryly. I watched Bella's face as we moved out of Renesmee's room, trying to decipher where her thoughts were. Did she feel the tension between us? Did she want what I so desperately did? Was she nervous or excited, or just diverted by the cottage? I realized suddenly how much I had relied on her human reactions to gauge her moods and needs. The flush of her skin, the intensification of her scent, her pounding heart, the small learned signs of her mounting passion. I felt slightly lost now, her body silent as I tried to determine the intensity of her eyes. Finally, we entered the sanctuary Esme had created, a cool, soothing shrine to the moments we had spent on the island. It was breathtakingly perfect, much more powerful in reality than what I had seen in her thoughts.
"Oh,"
Bella breathed, taking it all in. I know, I whispered, the atmosphere thick with memory. I glanced around, seeing the entrance to Alice's shrine on the far wall. The closet is through those double doors. I should warn you, it's bigger than this room.
"We are going to tell Alice that I ran right to the closet,"
she said softly, her hand moving into my hair, gripping as she turned my face towards her and pulled close. Her passion was laid bare before me now, finally, in her breathless voice, her glowing eyes, and in the lines of her heated expression, and I felt a rush of excitement.
"We're going to tell her that I spent hours in there playing dress-up. We're going to lie."
Bella suddenly twisted her fingers into my hair, almost too hard, and sensation exploded within me as I grazed, for the first time, the exquisite border of pleasure and pain. I clutched her head with one hand, crushing her to me, moaning slightly as her mouth urgently met mine. When we had kissed earlier, she had tasted of melted sweet honey, but now she was all fire and heat, scorching my tongue. She twisted out of my grasp, her feet touching the floor, so that she was standing in front of me. Then she pulled back, her hands gripping my shirt that she still wore, and pulled, the buttons melting away as she wrenched it off. Her eyes seared into mine, hot and challenging. Smiling, I reached out, twisting my finger into the top of her dress, and pulled her forward abruptly. She gasped softly, and I kissed her again, hard, stone melting into stone. Then I pulled my finger slowly down the front of the tattered remains of her dress, dragging against her body, her skin molten under mine as her head fell back slightly. The material split easily, like slicing through dark waters. I lifted my hands to her shoulders, pushing the dress back, and heard it flutter to the floor. With a flick of my wrist, I removed what remained on her body.
"Edward,"
Bella whispered, her lips meeting mine once more. With the swift movements of her insistent hands on my clothes, soon there was nothing between us. Her fingers roamed against my bare back feverishly, the sensation unparalleled. When she had been human, Bella's hands had been the gentle caress of soft feathers, ethereal, both torturous and tantalizing. Now they gripped at my skin, warm and strong, unrelenting, sending my body spiraling into a new, overpowering abandon. So much of this we had never been able to experience before, only small glimpses, just dancing on the edge of the real thing. To be able to touch and feel her without fear, it was extraordinary, familiar, and yet racing with a new, consuming intensity that had been bound for too long within me. And I knew now there was no doubt I could let go. Bella pulled back and raised her head, her eyes reflecting our shared fever. My arms were wrapped around her back, and I slid one hand slowly down, following the landscape of her body, before slowly bending and gathering her back into my arms. I cradled her for a second, before falling to my knees and lowering her onto the floor. She tried to pull me frantically onto her body, her strength overpowering, and I acquiesced until I was just hovering over her. Then I pulled back against her clutching hands, pausing, savoring. Our bodies were stretched against each other's, barely touching, but bound securely by brilliant, burning love, and want, and need, and devotion. At a million points between us, there was the intangible, electric spark that had always been there, the connection that had once seemed against nature, that had survived heartache and loss, joy and danger, and in the end had transcended even humanity itself. We belonged together, forever. Then I lowered myself down, and knew only her.